A very good evening to you, dear viewers. This is exactly 6 p.m. Cairo local time, and now it's time for this English news bulletin coming to you out of Channel 2. This is Reem Tamer, and we start with the political segment, kicking off with the headlines. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inspects development projects in Luqsor. Egyptians vote in the first phase runoff in 10 governorates. And U.S. strikes Venezuela, captures Maduro and his wife. Welcome back. The news in full. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inspected on Saturday a number of development national projects in Luqsor Governorate, including initiatives under Presidential Haya Karima program to upgrade the rural villages in Isna and Armand towns. The visit comes as part of the government's ongoing efforts to monitor projects' implementation nationwide, particularly drinking water and sanitation, housing and basic services, with the aim of accelerating completion and maximizing public benefit. The Premier said the tour is meant to follow up on progress made since his last visit a year ago, noting that Luqsor's importance as a major tourist destination. He stressed that hundreds of projects are underway, particularly within Haya Karima, with directives of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to swiftly complete the first phase ahead of launching the second. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli also inspected a number of health care facilities affiliated to the Healthcare Public Authority, including Al-Karnak International Hospital, to follow up the progress achieved in Luqsor Governorate in the frame of the comprehensive health care system. For his part, Luqsor Governor hailed the exerted efforts in the health sector, especially in the comprehensive health care system, adding that it had a significant impact in upgrading the medical sector in the Governorate. The Governor also emphasized that the state establishing a mega medical facility is worth £1 billion in a bid to enhance the health quality system in Upper Egypt. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inspected Luqsor International Medical Complex as part of his tour in the Governorate. He stressed that the importance of preserving what has been achieved and working to provide the complex with the latest equipments, technologies and the best medical supplies and products so that it could continue playing its role. The Prime Minister reviewed a number of medical services provided by the complex to ensure the quality of services provided to the citizens. Egyptians vote on Saturday and Sunday, January the 3rd and 4th, in the first phase runoff in 10 Egyptian governorates. The two-day elections comprises 27 constituencies, where 98 candidates are voting for 49 seats at the House of Representatives. The runoff election comes after a ruling issued by the Supreme Administrative Court issued of cancelling 30 polling stations. The results of 3 constituencies in the first phase have been settled. The Executive Chief of the National Election Authority, Councillor Ahmed bin Dari, held a press conference over the latest developments of the first day of the runoff election of the annual constituencies of the first phase. Addressing the press conference, bin Dari called on the citizens positively participate to choose who represent them in the parliament. He also stressed on the regularity of the voting process on the first day of the runoff election of the cancelled constituencies, saying that the authority has not received any complaints. A young Palestinian was shot dead by Israeli fires in Shuja'iyya neighborhood east of Gaza City. Palestinian sources said that a Palestinian child was shot dead by Israeli troops in Beit Lahia in north of Gaza Strip, while 2 Palestinians were injured in Khan Yunis south of the Strip. The sources added that another Palestinian was injured by the occupation fires in the vicinity of Nasser Hospital west of Khan Yunis. banned from the Gaza Strip with 36 aid bodies. Medical charity Doctors Without Borders said on Saturday it will have to end its operations there in March if Israel does not reverse its decisions. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called to Israel on a ban on humanitarian agencies that provided aid in Gaza, saying he was deeply concerned at the development. Israel confirmed it is barring 37 major international humanitarian organizations from entering the Gaza Strip, accusing them of failing to provide the list of their employees' names, which is now officially required for security reasons. The MSF has around 40 international staff in the Gaza Strip and works with 800 Palestinian staff across 8 hospitals. Egypt expressed its deep concern regarding the recent developments in Yemen and the repercussion of escalation on security and stability there and on the whole region. In a statement for the foreign minister, Egypt reiterated its firm stance supporting the unity, sovereignty and territorial integrity of Yemen and the necessity of preserving national state institutions. Egypt stressed its providing comprehensive solutions to end the conflict and made the aspirations of the Yemeni people for security, stability and development. Egypt also affirmed the necessity of achieving de-escalation and restraint, avoiding any unilateral actions that threaten security and stability, and working to support efforts aimed at reducing escalation. Saudi Arabia on Saturday called for dialogue between factions in southern Yemen amid clashes in resource-rich Hadramaut province, where the Southern Transitional Council seized vast swathes of territory in recent weeks. In a statement, the Saudi Foreign Ministry called for a comprehensive conference in Riyadh to bring together all southern factions to discuss just solutions to the southern cause. Riyadh said the Yemeni government had issued the invitation for talks following repeated warnings and airstrikes on an alleged UAE weapons shipment. This week, the Saudi-led coalition launched a wave of attacks, including airstrikes on the Al-Khasha military camp in Hadramaut that left 20 dead. Earlier, the separatists announced the start of a 2-year transitional period towards declaring an independent state and said the process would include a dialogue and a referendum on independence. The United Arab Emirates said on Saturday it was deeply concerned by ongoing escalation in Yemen after government forces swept into areas seized last month by southern separatists seeking independence. This came as the UAE confirmed its latest troops had left Yemen. More details in the next report. On Saturday, it had withdrawn all its troops from Yemen. The move comes after days of airlifts by UAE military aircraft following an order to withdraw from anti-Houthi forces in Yemen, following Saudi Arabia pushing back against the advance of separatists there. A UAE Defense Ministry statement said its forces follows the implementation of a previously announced decision to conclude the remaining missions of counter-terrorism units. The process has been conducted in a manner that ensured the safety of all personnel and carried out in coordination with all relevant partners. Earlier, Yemen's separatist movement announced the constitution for an independent nation in the south and demanded other factions in the war-torn country accept the move in an escalation of a confrontation that has pitted Gulf powerhouses Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates against each other. On Friday, Saudi warplanes bombed camps and military positions held by the Southern Transitional Council (STC) in Hadramaut province as Saudi-backed fighters tried to seize the facilities. The head of the STC, Al-Zubayd, issued a video statement saying that the constitution his group issued would be in effect for 2 years, after which a referendum would be held on exercising the right to self-determination for the people of the south. During those 2 years, he said the relevant parties in North and South Yemen should hold a dialogue on a path and mechanisms that guarantee the right of the people of the south. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Saturday that U.S. forces had captured Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro after launching a large-scale strike on the South American country. Multiple explosions rang out and low-flying aircraft swept through Caracas, the capital, as Maduro's government immediately accused the United States of attacking civilian and military installations. Venezuela accused the United States of hitting residential areas in a wave of strikes early on Saturday and announced a major deployment of military resources. Venezuela Venezuela's Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez said that his country would launch a massive deployment of all land, air, naval, riverine and missile capabilities for comprehensive defense. The Federal Aviation Administration issued a ban on U.S. commercial flights in Venezuelan airspace because of ongoing military activity ahead of the explosions. Venezuela on Saturday demanded an emergency meeting of the UN Secretary Council to discuss the U.S. attacks on the country amid uncertainty over the whereabouts of President Nicolas Maduro. Faced with the criminal aggression committed by the U.S. government against their homeland, Venezuela and a foreign minister said that they have requested an urgent meeting of the United Nations Security Council, which is responsible for upholding international law. Meanwhile, the EU called for restraint and respect for international law in Venezuela on Saturday after President Donald Trump announced that U.S. forces had captured leader Nicolas Maduro in a large-scale assault. After speaking with her U.S. counterpart Marco Rubio, the bloc's top diplomat Kaja Kallas said that EU has repeatedly stated that Mr. Maduro's legitimacy is and has defended a peaceful transition. Venezuela's neighbors and allies of its President Nicolas Maduro on Saturday condemned the long-scale U.S. strike on the South American country as Spain offered to mediate for a peaceful settlement. Iran said it strongly condemns the U.S. military attack on Venezuela and a flagrant violation of the national sovereignty and territorial integrity. Colombian President Gustavo Petro called it an assault on the sovereignty of Latin America, which would lead to a humanitarian crisis. Also, the Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement that Russia condemned the U.S. military action as an act of armed aggression against Venezuela. Spain calls for de-escalation and restraint, adding it was ready to help in the search for a democratic, negotiated and a peaceful solution for the country. Germany's foreign ministry said that they are monitoring the situation in Venezuela very closely and following the latest reports with great concern. To the world of business and finance, Venezuelan state-run energy company said that oil production and refining were normal on Saturday, and its most important facilities had suffered no damage from U.S. attacks. The company said that the port of La Guaira near capital Caracas, one of the country's largest, but it's not used for oil operations, was reported to have suffered severe damage. OPEC Plus announced that it will likely maintain steady oil output at its meetings on Sunday. Sunday's meeting of 8 members of OPEC Plus, which pumps about half the world's oil, comes after oil prices fell more than 18% in 2025, their steepest drop since 2020, and growing oversupply concerns. The 8 Saudi Arabia, Russia, UAE, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Iraq, Algeria and Oman raised oil output targets by around 2.9 million barrels per day from April to December 2025, equal to almost 3% of world oil demand. U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the unraveling of a $2.9 million computer chips deal that he concluded threatened U.S. security interests if the current owner remained in control of the technology. The deal involved aerospace and also defense specialist MCOR Corporation selling its computer chips and wafer fabrication operations to Chinese HEFO for $2.92 million, a price that included the assumption of about $1 million in liabilities. However, Trump is now demanding that HEFO divest that technology within 180 days, citing credible evidence that the current owner is a citizen of the People's Republic of China.